The world of sales is at a fascinating crossroads. On one hand, buyers are more informed, empowered, and demanding than ever before. On the other hand, organizations are struggling to equip the sales team with the right mix of data, digital tools, and human skills to stay relevant. The question is no longer whether sales needs to transform, it's whether we are ready for the future of selling. Welcome to this episode of the Learning Curve podcast. I'm Manu Nanda, the President for India Middle East at KNOLSKAPE. Our guest is Uwe Goethert, founder and CEO of Quandox. Uwe is someone I have known, followed, and admired over the years for his entrepreneurship and business mindset. Uwe is excellent at building companies with a mix of sales focus, strategy, and growth. Simply put, Uwe is a B2B sales performance expert. And what's excited me about this conversation is that we'll explore what it truly means to be future proof organizations, the role of AI and data in reshaping the sales function, the human qualities leaders cannot afford to lose, and the steep learning curves that shape tomorrow's winners. Hi, Uwe. Welcome to the Learning Curve, and we are absolutely delighted to have you with us.
Hi, Manu. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation. The market is changing significantly, and so I'm happy to have a conversation with you to talk about what are the changes, what's coming up, and what companies need to do in order to stay ahead of the competition and stay ahead of the time what we are facing at the moment.
Thank you, Uwe, and it's always a delight to speak to you. But before we move into the serious stuff of our conversation, Uwe, I have a quick rapid fire section for you where there's going to be about three, four questions coming at you at a rapid speed. The whole idea is just to warm up the conversation and for our listeners to know you better. And my first question for you is one word that best describes the future of sales.
Changing.
Wow, amazing. My second question, Uwe, is if it's not what you do now, what would have been your second passion as a profession?
I would be probably a traveler, seeing the world and getting to know many people.
Sure. And this would mean traveling all over the world.
Yes, there's so much to learn around there. Every culture has
Yeah.
this different way to live and to learn, and there's so much to learn. So it's just amazing seeing and talking with people.
Super. My third question, Uwe, is which is more potent in sales? Is it intuition or analytics?
I think it was intuition. It's gonna be more and more analytics, but that's some topic we're gonna dig deeper throughout this conversation. But still,
Yes.
I think sales people need to have good intuition to see the future. What can we do with a client? How can we help the client? And how can the client benefit from what we offer?
Sure. A mistake earlier in your career that turned out to be a blessing in disguise for you.
Um, Sometimes making decisions too fast.
Oh, okay. 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 That's interesting. And, maybe my last of the rapid fire ways, the biggest myth about sales today's day and age. What's the biggest myth you feel about sales?
That sales stays as it is and as it was the last decades. It's gonna change
Oh, sure.
significantly.
Sure. That's interesting. So that was an excellent rapid fire, Uwe, and now we'll move into a very detailed conversation. And this conversation, Uwe, it's going to be a mix of understanding the future of B2B sales, and no one else to talk about it better than you. And also this whole element of AI, data analytics, and being future ready. So very simply put, Uwe, my first question on this is what's changed? What's changed in terms of how we were selling, say, pre-pandemic in 2017, 2018, 2019, and perhaps in the last 2.5 years? So what do you think has changed?
Yeah, the interesting part is there has been so much change, but the biggest change is just ahead of us. But let's talk first about what has changed. Pre-pandemic, we mostly had a one-to-one conversation with our customers. It was more like a linear process. We had a sales process. We knew we're gonna have a first conversation. We need to build somehow a rapport. We need to understand the client. So it was kind of a linear process where we exactly most of the time exactly we knew exactly where we are in the process. What are the next step? This has changed quite a bit to the day to day because the customers are much more informed. Sometimes they might know even more about our products than we ourselves, because all informations are out there. AI is catching up with all informations, and so it's not anymore being the transmitter of informations and features and tools. It's more being a partner for our customer and really trying to help our customer to succeed. And that's a sentence I have heard over my entire career for the last 40 years in sales. Well, you need to understand your customer. Yes, of course, but it's the last 3 decades, I would have said, most of the time we had our product in mind. We knew we follow a process. We know we need to ask questions, need to understand where the client is at the moment, what are the challenges, and there are so many sales methods out there like spin selling or challenger sales or whatsoever. So it was kind of a linear process, and we followed the process. Right now, it's totally different. We need to jump back and forth. We need to see where we are. Customer is asking more different questions. AI is playing a bigger role. And so we need to be much more agile, and we need to be adaptable to the changes the market is seeing. And the funny part and the big part and the challenging is going to come in the future, the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Yes, and I'm going to pick up two things over what you mentioned. One is coming across as a partner, and the earlier process where it used to be a linear way of doing things or asking too many questions. But we all understand there is a lot of disruption, and clients do their homework before actually getting into a conversation with a prospective partner. And that brings to my next question, Uwe, and this is something that I've been wanting to ask you for a couple of times, is what led to you to start Quandox? What gap in B2B sales or performance consulting were you aiming to lift, or what problem statement were you wanting to address?
Yeah, I have been in P2P sales for the last 3 decades. So I've seen many different organizations. I grew up in Germany, worked for small companies, worked for a huge organization with 120,000 employees, and have sold myself large and complex projects into many countries. So I probably have worked together with about 40 different countries, customers there. And if I combine all this information, and I would nail it down to one thing, is what is the challenge in B2B sales is sustainability. A lot of companies go in to run a training session. What is a year later or 2 years later? That's one question. A lot of stuff might just disappear again because there's another big topic inside the company. And so my main question was always not just how to educate people or how to improve processes or how to align departments. The main question is, first of all, how can we have it sustained for a long time? And also, is there any chance to measure the intelligence, the sales intelligence inside an organization? Organizations are measuring KPIs, top line, bottom line, margin, lead time. We can mention many different KPIs, but I haven't seen a KPI or a number which measures the sales intelligence inside an organization on an organizational level. And this made me
Sure.
think, and this was a foundation for building Quandox.
Super, super. And I like, what you mentioned about sustainability in a big way, because that is something that needs to be continuous and progressive. And that actually is a segue to my next question, because you've spoken about sales intelligence in a big way and understanding the the USP for Quandox in a big way, and this is something that you speak about very often. You look at something which is called sales IQ. I mean, that's one of the tools that you use. Our listeners would be absolutely interested in terms of what are the dimensions that you assess, why those, and why did you pick up those dimensions? And I believe there are five of them. And how do you actually ensure that you assess them, and how do you actually make sure that the insights lead to an actual change within the team or the organization?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Sales is very complex. The previous question was what has changed over the years. I think change became much more complex, and complexity is hindering us to make good sales, because clarity makes good sales. Because if we know exactly where we are, where we want to be, where our client is, what the needs for our clients are, then we have clarity and we can move forward. So complexity is something which holds us back to do really good sales. And so I came up with a thought: what is an important pillar in order to find out sales excellence or professional sales, or however you want to call it? What are the foundation of good sales? And we made some research. I had a research person looking around, making research, secondary research, primary research, from all my experience I had from all companies. I spoke with many CEOs, CROs, or sales directors, and we came up with five pillars. One pillar is a strategy, and strategy defines where we are and where we want to be, and how we are going to play our game. Second pillar is operations. So operations is a process to get there. What is our tactics? What steps do we need to do in order to get there? And another pillar is alignment, means how aligned are we with our customer? We could also speak about customer centricity, but it's not just the customer centricity, but it's also alignment inside our organization. How aligned we are with our marketing department, with our F&E department, development department of products, and as well, of course, its capabilities. How capable our sales team, our organization, to deliver the message. It's soft skills, but also hard skills, especially in the time right now, talking about AI. How can we use AI in a much better way to help us for our clients and for our business? And this leads to the fifth pillar, which is analytics. Are we able to really analyze the data? And right now in 2025 and end of 2025, organizations have more data than ever before. We get all different data from all different tools. Main question is, do I have clarity about this data? Or do I just being messed up with all this data because I'm overwhelmed? So question is, do I have the right data? And if so, how can I read them in the right way? And this all together, these five pillars, is the foundation of sales excellence. If I work with them in a right way, if I align them in the right way, a company will grow, a sales organization will grow. If they are not aligned, a company might not grow anymore, or is missing out growth opportunities.
Excellent. And I really resonate with the five pillars that you mentioned, where you're speaking about strategy, operations, alignment to the customer, capability, which is a big thing, and also the fifth one that you mentioned, which is on analytics. And analytics is something we spoke of right at the beginning of this conversation. And so when you look at these five pillars, and obviously one leads to the other, and they need to be stitched together. Uwe, in terms of your experience across, and when you say you've been speaking to a lot of CEOs, CROs, how can organizations actually ensure that the recommendations that come from using diagnostics to move from strategy into execution, especially with complex international B2B organizations which are spread across geographies or have different ways of working. Any thoughts? Because I know you work with multiple organizations across the globe. So how does all this fall in together?
Well, we both know a lot of organizations, and if we start with strategy, um, the leadership teams, the CEO and the top level team starts to implement a new strategy or enforcing a new strategy. We can see all posters hanging around, all messages going around. Everyone speaks about the new themes, a new strategy. But the reality is, if you look at the second level, third level, or even lower in the organization, and if you would ask the top level, saying, "Well, what about strategy?" You get a crystal clear answer about strategy. If you ask the second level, you get an answer which goes in the right direction. If you go to the third level, you might get an answer which thinks you go in the right direction. But if you go even lower, especially in large organization, some people say, well, what's our strategy? I don't know. I have heard something, but I don't know what it means. Especially, I don't know what it means for me. So, and it has to do a lot of with messaging inside the organization. It's not just what the poster on the wall says, that's our strategy. It's how people live the strategy. Is everything aligned with the strategy? If for example, if an organization says, well, customers first, that's what we hear a lot in strategies. One nice indicator is if you go to this organization and you try to find a parking space with your car, and the visitor car parking space is the furthest away from the entrance, has nothing to do with customer centricity. So it's not just what's on the wall, a sign or a letter. It's how the organization lives it, how the leadership team supports their team members, how the sales leaders coach their team members. So it's an entire framework, an entire attitude, an entire behavior inside an organization. And I think that's very important if we just talk about strategy. And this goes through all different pillars we have. It's the same
Yes.
with analytics or operations or alignment. It's not just what's written down somewhere, it's a way how an organization lives. And you have visited and we have visited together some organizations, and sometimes you can feel it if you open the door, if you get in, have a 5-minute conversation, you see either you feel it, something is going on in a very positive way, or you feel, I don't know why, but something seems to be disconnected. And that's very,
Sure.
very
Excellent. And
important.
yes, absolutely. And what I've just loved about what you said is, it's the leaders who need to walk the talk, and it should not be just on the wall. And I'll segue into the next segment of our conversation, Uwe. And this is something which is out there, a buzz everywhere, every time, where people are talking about AI and predictive analytics and personalization. And this whole conversation that AI is no longer optional. Somewhere sales team increasingly need to rely on AI powered tools for everything from account scoring to lead gen to personalized engagement or curating the right kind of proposal for their clients. My question here, Uwe, is, and it's again linked to one of the pillars that you mentioned on capability. How should leaders separate hype from reality when preparing their teams for an AI driven future? Or should I call it AI driven sales future?
Um, Let me think about it. AI driven sales future probably is, the question is, can we use AI in the ways that it helps us in the future? I don't think we should become in a situation where AI drives us. We should drive AI. We should lead AI. And I think many people talking about AI is going to steal our working spaces. AI is going to give a lot of unemployment, maybe. But we have seen this in the history with book printing, with computers. Everyone said, well, if I have a computer, I lose my job. Yeah, you might lose your job, but we founded another thousands and thousands new jobs, which have never been before. The same is going to be with AI. So it's the main question is, how can we as organization or as individual in sales use AI to our benefit instead of being afraid? Because AI is not taking the jobs from people. AI is taking the jobs from people who do not know how to use AI. So we need to just go with the flow. Some of the stuff is hype. Some of the stuff will disappear again. I just remember on Second Life. I don't know if you remember this virtual reality. Everyone said, "Well, Second Life is a new big thing." Yeah, maybe not yet. AI is the next big thing, definitely, but we just need to make sure that we use it in the right way. And as a leader in an organization, you need to help your team members to understand an AI and you see the benefits, but also you need to have a certain amount of critical thinking, because don't believe everything you see on AI.
That's brilliant. I think you've hit the nail on the head when you say that AI is there, but AI is a hype, and not believe everything, because end of the day you need to think critically. And that's very interesting way, because there's actually research by Gartner where and this is based on our research that we've done, where 65% of B2B sales organizations will actually transition, and something that I asked you right in the beginning of the conversation, from intuition based to data driven decision making by 2026. That's the the forecast coming, and this is all about using technology, which includes workflow, data analytics in a big way. There is a flip side to this, which comes out very strongly. While the Gartner report speaks about data analytics and all, flip side to that is data-driven insights often mean confronting uncomfortable truths. Uh, how do you actually build trust and manage resistance inside client organizations so that your interventions actually stick? The data will throw uncomfortable truth. How do you actually ensure that there is trust when you're dealing with your clients or their internal teams? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the transparency, it's a big trust builder. People will follow leaders as long as they know which directions they're gonna go. So if the management needs to be transparent, even so in times right now, like if we talk about car industry, automotive industry, probably they don't know how the future really looks like in 5 years or 10 years down the road. But still, the leaders need to reflect a kind of, well, we know what we know, and we know what we don't know, and there are so many things we even don't know that we don't know. But still, the team members need to have transparency, what people know and what people don't know. And it's not longer a weakness admitting, well, that's something I don't know. I think it's a strength of an organization. Probably we don't know yet what the situation is, but we will figure it out. This builds more trust instead of saying, well, we know everything, and the team members know that's not the truth. So transparency is a very big trust builder inside an organization. If you talk about clients and about customers, it's also transparency, and it's also having a conversation about business, about future, not anymore about tools or features or uh, flipping catalog pages saying, well, on page 75 there's our new product. That's not how we can build trust anymore, because that's something the client can access themselves. So we need to build trust in being a business partner to our clients and helping our clients that he or she understands their business maybe even better. So we need to learn much, much more, much faster than the competitors. And if an organization is capable of learning faster than the market changes, they are staying ahead of the market.
Excellent. And I again, something two words that I pick up from what you mentioned is building trust and being absolutely transparent. And again, in the world of AI, data, technology, it's all about human-centric approach, or a human-centric leadership that we all speak about. You mentioned critical thinking as the big need. There is other that conversation about emotional intelligence, building psychological safety for your sales team. My question, Uwe, is again, how do you put that into practice in a performance driven organization, especially in the age of AI, where the workforce is absolutely stressed about maybe being replaced, or at the same time, driving revenue uh, with all the disruption around? How do you actually put into practice a performance driven team or an organization? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's like also in the past was a lot about what is the goal and the vision of the organization. We need to hit whatever 50 million, 500 million, 5 billion, whatever the revenue number is. So and everyone needs to follow. I think it's gonna change more towards how can we develop our people to the best extent as it works, because not developing people is not an option since the organization is not well positioned. And I have heard many times that organizations say, well, if we educate and develop our people, they might go to the competition. Yeah, that's great, but what's the option, what's the alternative? Not developing them. And so the question, what's in it for me and how important the job is for me, becomes more and more relevant for employees, for team members, where the leaders really need to think what's in it for them. How can we help them to make a living? Costs are rising, and how can we develop them in a certain way that they are happy and that they have a work-life balance, or they have a purpose inside an organization. It's not pushing anymore so much, it's more finding a collective working together on a certain goal where everyone can benefit.
Excellent, excellent. I would have two more questions, Uwe, and it's it's December of 2025. The year is ending. Any predictions for 2026? And why I ask you that is somewhere you've spoken about collective sales intelligence, working together collectively. Would you want to elaborate in terms of what that would mean for the coming year, or in terms of what are your predictions, say, for 2026? What's actually going to change?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Let's go a little back. Let's go 150 years back, or almost
Sure.
200 years back. There was a German scientist. His name was Justus von Liebig. It's not that important what his name was. More important what he did. He was studying flowers and plants, and was trying to figure out what makes a plant growing and what stops a plant in growing. And he figured something very significantly out, and which is common knowledge, but very, very important. If you have a plant or a flower needs light, needs oxygen or air, needs earth, needs nutrition, and also needs water. Needs much more, but basically these are the five components which keeps a plant growing. And if you take one of the five elements away, like let's say you don't put water anymore in your plant, everyone knows the plant is going to die, or it's not going to grow anymore. And regardless of how many from the other four you put in on top of it, means if you don't have water, but if you put more oxygen in it or more nutrition in it, it doesn't help. And that's looking into 2026. It's probably the same for organizations. We need to fix the water issue, in my example, since a plant can grow further. And organizations, what they have done in the past, they knew what they have been able to do, like they had a great hiring process. They got great people on the board. Means they had good ingredients there, but probably they had a bad process. So adding more salespeople doesn't help the organization grow, because the limiting factor is the process. So they need to dig into a process and need to see what kind of issues I need to fix on the process in order to grow further. And that's what I mean for the future. Collective sales intelligence is figuring out where we are, what is the limiting factor. We need to have absolutely clarity where we are. Do we have all ingredients together, and on which of the ingredients do I need to change something? And that's what the sales IQ, sales intelligence score, figures out. Which pillar is short? What do I need to add? Do I need to add water? Do I need to add oxygen? Do I need to add nutrition to my sales team, to my sales organization, in order to grow? And that's a collective collective approach, not just from sales, but also from marketing, but also from strategy, but also from, if you put the customer in the middle, or customer centricity, what the customer needs. So that's a collective part. And also AI plays a significant role in the future with all the data and all predictive we can get. Sales, of course, we need to go out and speak with people. And intelligence is, we need to learn faster than the competition. Then we can stay ahead of the market, and we can help our client to succeed their goals. Does it make sense?
Sure. Excellent, excellent, absolutely. And I'm actually going to, what you mentioned, I'm actually going to take this into the possibly the last question of our conversation away, although I would have loved to continue this. This is a non-sales question. This is all about the disruption that we see, what's happening globally, whether it's geopolitical or the technology that we've spoken of. It's, about the disruption in supply chain, disruption in some of the markets across the globe, and which is there to stay. So this will continue, and that's what
Yeah.
the predictions are. There's nothing that get up tomorrow morning and everything is calm and peaceful. My question here to you, Uwe, is based on your brilliant experience working across the globe. How can leaders actually build an organization which is resilient, agile, and how is it that everything can come together, whether it's the different functions towards a common goal, or whether it's to increase revenue,
Mm.
or at the same time keep the people together? Any thoughts, any tips you would? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it needs to have, an organization needs to have kind of an operating system. And the operating system might look different than it looked in the past. Past, we had a long list. I just spoke with a client with almost 10,000 employees, and we spoke about projects. And the project manager said, "Well, I have an Excel spreadsheet with 175 different projects on my list. Some of them are 2 years, 3 years long, etc., etc." And I said, "Well, where's your focus? Where's your clarity on your project list?" And he said, "Well, we need to push all of them." I think that's going to change in the future. We need to select what is really making the difference, like which ingredient do we need at this moment in order to grow further, and pick the next ingredient afterwards. So I think the cycles are gonna get shorter and shorter. It's not like a 5-year plan for the next, and we stick to it. We have to have a vision for the next 5 years or 10 years, and we need to stick to it. That's right, but we cannot lay everything out as we have done in the past. So things are changing much more rapidly, and we call it at Quandox the Quandox performance cycle, which has always 3 steps. One is clarity. I need to understand where I am, what is a missing nutrition or missing water or missing ingredient. Then I need to focus what I'm gonna do. And the biggest question is, and the hardest question is, what I'm not gonna do in the future. So having kind of a flip chart with, that's what we're gonna do, and here's a longer flip chart, also project we would like to do, but we don't do. So I really have to, the organization needs to have very strict focus. And the third step is impact, really focusing on impact in short cycles, like a sprint, like in 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 3 months, 4 months. And then I need to measure my impact, progress. And that's the reason we have built a sales IQ, seeing what number the organization is right now. And after we went through the performance cycle, saying, clarity, focus, impact. After 3, 4, 5, 6 months, we measure the same number again, same sales intelligence score again, and then we can see where we made impact. So the cycle's getting shorter. We need to be more agile, and we need to really use AI for our use instead of being used by AI.
Well, that's brilliant what you mentioned, and that's, I think, going to be my takeaway from this conversation in terms of not getting used by AI, but using AI in the right way. And I can't but help squeeze in one last question, Uwe, because I'm absolutely intrigued by the 3 things that you mentioned, which is clarity, focus, and also, having the right priority in terms of what you're not going to do. My last question, Uwe, is, and maybe you could just give a very brief response to that, is what qualities will define the next generation of leaders? There is a significant change happening across. What are the three or four qualities that you feel organizations need to groom their leaders to steer teams through this uncertainty and transformation that is happening? Any thoughts, any insights on that?
Getting back to the first, to the beginning of our conversation, which actually I enjoyed a lot, Manu. Thank you for all this question. And I'm gonna have one question for you before we
Oh yeah,
get
yeah,
off,
super, super, absolutely.
if you don't mind. But what do we need in the future? We need to be flexible. We need to be agile. So that's a very important point. Also, we need to think outside the box, or how we would call it right now, critical thinking. We don't need to believe everything what's on the market. We need to distinguish between what's on hype and what's reality, and how does this reality attack me, or affects me. And of course, leadership is going to be also about building relationships, building trust, and building transparency.
Excellent. I think you've summed it up very nicely, and it's absolutely resonates with the qualities that you mentioned, or the behavioral competencies that leaders absolutely need to have. And I'm open to your question, Uwe. Before we go to the
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
you're a successful person. You became president of your organization. You interview a lot of people. You have seen many clients. You worked on many different projects. How do you see the year 2030 going on for?
2030.
Yeah, it's just 4.5 years ago. And
Yeah, it's just
if
4.5 years.
if you would
That's not
have
too
had
far.
this conversation 10 years ago, we would have said, how do you see
Yes.
2050? Because
Right,
the
right, right.
span was much longer. But how do you see
Yeah.
the next couple or few years ahead of us?
Yeah, so interesting question, Uwe. And, I see this as a combination of high tech and high touch. While technology is going to be super disruptive, and, where we all know where AI is going to lead us, at the same time, the human touch of getting in person with clients or conversations within the organization, elements of critical thinking, emotional intelligence needs to be there. And I go back to a very famous quote: "End of the day, we are all creatures of emotions, and we are not robotic in any way." So 2030 is going to be all about analytics, data in a big way, but at the same time the human touch. When you're sitting in front of your uh, client, that is going to make the difference, because it's how you come across, how you are able to build rapport, how are you able to build trust.
True.
That is something which can only happen in person. So it's going to be a mix of technology, and at the same time the human touch absolutely going to be there.
Thank you, Manu. Thank you for the insight.
Thank
I'm
you.
looking forward to having a human touch, seeing you in person again someone
Oh,
soon, and
absolutely,
exchange more thoughts and ideas. Thank you so much for
absolutely.
having me.
Thank you so much, Uwe, and for the lovely chat. The insights and the experiences that you have shared in this discussion is something that I'm sure the viewers and the listeners will find it great value and learning. I've learned a lot from you, Uwe, today. And as I mentioned right in the beginning, I was really looking forward to this conversation. I want to thank all our viewers and listeners for tuning into the learning curve. We shall be back in the next episode with another great personality and insights on making organizations, leaders, and the workforce ready for the future. Until next time, take care and goodbye.